Breaking overnight, hundreds of protesters marching in the streets of Hope. This demonstration was a response.
The images eventually became very similar to what we saw last year.
A clear message of breaking overnight, hundreds of protesters marching in the streets of Hope. This demonstration was a response.
The images eventually became very similar to what we saw last year.
A clear message of
Well, cool, brothers. I'm so happy we can be here today. This has been a long time coming. It's been a long day just to get to this point today, but we're finally here. Thank you all for coming out. Just as a preface of what this is all about, the SAM Project, we want to bring brothers together and have real conversation about issues that are germane to Black men, African-American men, and be able to share the information with the world. Hopefully that it will provide context to others as allies. It will give affirmation to us as Black men in terms of we're not by ourselves in some of the things that we might feel, some of the perspectives that we might have about things, and also maybe provide solutions to some of the issues that affect us. And so today we're talking about COVID and how it impacts our community, but more importantly, what do we need to be thinking about and doing as Black men to protect our communities, our families, ourselves as it relates to this virus. So, I guess we can kind of just go around and introduce ourselves, and I guess I should have started with that. James Walker, and we'll work our ways this way and come on back on this side.
Good to be here. My name's Stephen Day, and I live in Oakland, California, and I've been a resident of Oakland since 1996.
James, thank you for the invitation. Derek Gardner from Oakland, California. I currently live in Hayward, California.
Shadid Cullen Jr., born and raised in San Francisco, California.
Kier Abrams, born and raised Hercules, California.
Tim Waters, born and raised in New York, but a transplanted out here in New York. Don't be hating on the accent. Not at all. Still carry it to the day I die.
Right on.
But came out here about 23 years ago. Live in San Ramon, California. Work in San Francisco, Bayview, Hunters Point.
Thank you, brother. So let's start. So now let's see. We're in March, end of March, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so COVID kind of popped up really in terms of, at least for the state of California, when we hit kind of stay-at-home order. But it's been about 24 months now, actually a little longer than that, about 28 months since we've been hearing about COVID, because it was late 2019 when we heard about Wuhan and this thing called COVID and where it was, and then all of a sudden it jumped here into the States really quickly.
Yes.
And so I'd like to maybe just start there in terms of when you first heard about it now 2 years ago. What came up for you all at that particular time?
Man, I'll start. I was at work, and I got a mandate saying basically, man, we about to get shut down, and you don't got to come to work, and this and that, and it seemed kind of unreal. Like, what's going on? I mean, we hear about COVID, we heard about it, and then when that happened and the world just kind of shut down, it was like, okay, so what's next? Really, ultimately, me personally, I mean, I took COVID as an opportunity to advance myself. So I got back in school, got into my master's program.
Wow.
And just, I was just using that as an opportunity to just grow, because it was pretty much nothing else to do. So that's kind of was my mindset when I first heard about it. Yeah, just take advantage of the time, I guess, Don't let it pass you.
I think mine was scarcity. I actually remember when it first came on set, I was showing property in Latham. And I'm talking to the wife, and I'm like, yo, I'm going to go to Target out here because there's nothing in the Target stores, closer to where we live at. So I went to Target and spent, I did the 500, all the essentials, waters, toilet papers. So that was my first, kind of like drastic change was I became a bulk shopper. And it's changed my habits now. I've always had a Costco card. but now I use it. You know?
Ah,
I got the
yeah.
waters on top of waters,
Right, right.
Yeah.
paper towels on
Paper
paper
towel,
towels.
uh-huh.
For
Wipes on top of wipes.
Put it just in case. Actually, I keep the wipes in the trunk,
Sure.
all that stuff. But I think that was the first time when COVID first came out. That was the biggest thing for me was, bought a freezer. I got a deep freezer.
Right,
So
right,
all
right.
the things
You
that,
know,
you know,
yeah, for real.
you know, when
Makes
I
all
grew up
sense.
as a kid that most of my children, my kid friends' parents had, I became that guy, you know?
Right.
So that was the
Right.
biggest, you know, from a behavior change, that's kind of what I've adapted to.
So that's why you said scarcity.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anybody else
Mindset.
thoughts about it?
Please.
I had a different perspective about COVID because I used to live in China right
Oh, wow.
before
Wow.
it hit, and I left China in maybe July 2019, and I still had a lot of friends in Guangzhou where I used to live, and then December 2019, I was seeing crazy videos on Instagram from my friends back in Guangzhou, and then I would DM them and say, "What is this? What is this? This is." I mean, videos of cops chasing people, videos of people in the street, kind of dead. Not kind of dead.
Yeah.
let's just
Yeah.
get that.
Wow.
And I'm saying that, but then I'm also in America. I'm like, okay, I'm not really, tripping
Sure.
about it.
Sure.
But then like in February, my friends had to leave. I had friends from South Africa had to go back to South Africa. Friends from Taiwan had to go back. Friends from from Nepal, from the Philippines, they have to go back.
Wow.
I'm like, well, what is going on here? So like, I knew it was about to hit, but I didn't know it was gonna hit.
Yeah. Wow.
Because we're all American, and we're protected. We have the best defense system in the world. So I'm thinking, okay, this is us. But then it hit when we had to leave my job,
Mhm.
and we didn't return for a while. So that was kind of how it hit for me. You know.
Got the insight.
Yeah.
Intel.
Steve, what about you, man?
Yeah, it sounds like what he's talking about is sort of the dissolution of a community. We had a community of friends. And
Yeah.
I work as a public school educator in Oakland, and I was actually at a school site when they announced it, and it was surreal. I saw the emotional reactions from all the teachers. I read other people's reactions sometimes to get a better understanding of what's going on, and just the way it affected the school leaders, the teachers, and to see their raw emotions, something that was really scary. And the suddenness of it all is what stood out for me, because we immediately shut down the school district. And that's a Herculean task, even to think about all the knobs that have to be turned to do such things. You immediately think about community coming apart.
Yeah.
And that position that it put parents in right away, that's when it sank in for me, is this changes things permanently. We have to send these children home now, and they're not going to come back, and we don't know when they're going to come back. And that was day one, or ground zero for the pandemic for me, is recalling being at a school site the day that they shut down.
I didn't think about it that it would change permanently. So I had just come back from a group of my undergrad friends. We had just come back in New Year's, spent New Year's of 19 going into 20 in Costa Rica, and didn't really hear about it until we got home, and I'm like, okay, that's isolated, it's
Sure.
over there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Until I think it was on March 15th when we got the communication from Mayor Breed that we're shutting down. And
What does that mean? Yeah.
well, we went, believe it or not, for us as a nonprofit. So I work at a nonprofit in San Fran, in Bayview, and we just went into immediate mode. We just kind of boxed, I guess, me, kind of put all the ramifications to me off the side. It's like, what do we do for young community developers?
Sure.
And we got the notification at noon, and we had the shutdown plan done by 4 o'clock and communicated to the staff, work from home. Let's figure this out as we go forward.
Sure.
And it didn't really internalize until you started seeing the numbers, what you were saying,
Yeah.
the numbers start coming over and start landing on these shores, because we always consider ourselves very isolated. You know, two big oceans on one side and two
Right.
countries on the other. We're
Right.
isolated. And it was just a different lens. But then it became real. Right. Then it
Fast.
became real fast. Yeah.
Came real fast.
Yeah, it's crazy how I think for me when it came about the scarcity piece, I start thinking not only about that, but how was the world and the community around me was gonna react. I
Yeah.
start thinking I need to get ammo. You know,
Interesting, yeah.
like I want to make sure I have it, not only toilet paper and stuff, but you know, if people can't go to work or people can't get things, what's the next phase? What they gonna do?
Yeah, that's a
And
good
so,
point.
so
Sure.
for me, I'm
Sure.
like, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, I'm bunkering down in the crib, and for whatever happened, I'm ready for
Right.
for whatever. You know,
Right.
that was kind of my mentality around it. So, and I just can remember going out and driving on the freeways or highways, and no, it was like
Right.
it was like
Right.
Mad
So
Max.
did I.
You know?
So did I.
Right.
It was
I
like
remember
Mad
that
Max.
part.
Because nobody was out there.
That's right.
You know, you be on the highway, there's
That's a-
nothing out
yeah,
there,
yeah.
right?
Free.
And so
Literally
it was just
free.
a crazy thing. But you know what's funny now? You think about it is how quickly it came, and I remember those numbers. Like, oh, there's 40 cases in the U.S. Oh, there's
Right.
120. You know, oh now you know there's 800. You know, you saw the
early
cases
days, yeah.
early on, and I just looked at CDC numbers recently. Over 79 million people in this country have been infected with COVID, right? And
Just
so,
in this country.
yeah, just this country alone. And so you think about the magnitude
Sure.
of that number, right? At one point it was 100,000 people like a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We
I
were
remember
seeing
that. Right.
numbers like that, and so I mean, I guess part of that for me is I was very worried about what that meant for us, and
Mhm.
is this a
Mhm.
death sentence? Because people were passing away so quickly. How did y'all feel like when you started to see those numbers and go up, and just the number of fatalities around it?
I was hoping something like this was asked. I didn't mean to jump in. I'd really like to share this, and this triggered something. There was something that I really did not like that I still don't think I've gotten over. I felt like the mainstream media. I felt like it was an incitement of the population. It was a ticker at the bottom of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
How many people have died and been infected every day, and I didn't like that. It felt like a level of inhumane treatment. So we're numbers now. We have to hear a certain amount of numbers before we pay attention. But I noticed that the news just really seemed like they were alarmist in a lot of ways. Given the COVID numbers, 3 and 4 or 5 times during one news segment. And that left a really bad taste in my mouth. To this day, I didn't like that. I felt it was less concerned about the actual tragedies unfolding, communities coming apart, people being concerned about what's going to come next when people can't go to work, but you have the news steadily every day wanting us to pay attention to the ticker. And I thought that was traumatic.
With that said, though, when you again, for me, I looked at home and East Coast, New York, and the numbers just exploded there so fast. Then it became personal in some respects, just thinking about what's happening to that state,
Sure.
what's happening to the city, the concentration, and to your point, the videos that they would have of how many bodies were waiting in the parking lot, and
Right,
they couldn't even
right.
bury it. That's when it hit home too. It didn't hit me that it was going to spread so fast across the country, because a lot of it in the first few months, it seemed like it was very East Coast centric, and
Good
then the
point.
wave
That's
started coming
yeah.
out here.
Interesting.
But I'm thinking too, the media, they always have a narrative and their angles.
Right,
Right.
But
right,
with our hospital infrastructure, they weren't prepared.
right.
So they gotta
That's true.
distract you somehow with something, right? So if we give them the numbers, then we won't be talking about what Tim talking about. We don't have enough beds and
Absolutely.
resources
Right.
to help
Absolutely.
the sick and
Right.
the shut in, right? And
We're
the
supposed to lead the nation.
correct,
That's a
right?
great
And
point.
they feed off of fear. So now we are getting guns because we don't really have enough information.
Sure.
Nobody really knows what's going on,
Sure.
right? So we're gonna give you some numbers. We're gonna show you some geographical locations with a high effect of
Number with a high
of
number.
immortality. And so we get these numbers. You're watching the news.
Fear mongering.
Fear, right? Create that fear, create that narrative, and then
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna respond. I always say we fall back on our training, right? So you're gonna respond to according to your training of life. You know,
Right.
having been
Right.
in a dire situation before. You know,
Sure.
It wasn't the
Yeah,
pandemic,
sure.
but how did you grow up? You know,
Sure.
are you a survivor?
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
speak, and that, I
Yeah.
think that kind of sets your mind state
We all
and your
identify with
mantra
that.
for when you in those type of situations, whether it's pandemic,
Sure, any situation.
homelessness,
Yeah.
whatever the
Great
case may
point.
be. You know, it's all a way you could die off.
Mhm.
It's interesting though when they put Cuomo on the news and on a daily basis,
Correct.
continuous, on a daily basis. The one comfort that I got was at least he began to build a plan. Again, put the politics aside. For
Sure,
everybody.
sure.
He communicated a plan. This is what we're going to do. These are
Right.
the issues we need. Beds. We need the
Yeah.
breathing
Yes.
things and all that stuff. Is like okay, at least they started building a communication that there may be a way out of this. Took him a minute though to figure out or to really talk about the implications of it
Sure.
for
Mhm.
communities that don't have all the resources.
Did,
That was a problem.
did that add a layer of comfort for you, being concerned about your home state, your home city, New York City?
Comfort.
Maybe not comfort.
Comfort, yeah. I'm not sure if that's the right adjective.
Sure.
It hope, possibilities that we'll get
Sure.
through this, and it's
Sure.
not going to be as bad
Sure.
as it could be because people are beginning to build a plan. But again, when it began to really hit community,
Mm-hmm.
and when you work in the community and see the ramifications
Right.
of that,
Right.
that's when it's like, ooh, yeah, there's a whole nother level to this thing because now people are out of work. People don't have access to food.
Mhm.
Food
Scarcity,
insecurity
as he said, yeah.
as a problem. You
Uh-huh.
know, how does any municipality respond to that to make sure people can survive?